I'm recording at night because I've kept delaying making this video all day, and now we've just got to get going with it all in one go. So, there is two things that I think cripple me, and I think many other people, when it comes to making a project go. So, one of these things is called the big picture mode, and that's when you have this big grand vision that ends up being a bit vague in your head, and you can see what its finished product is meant to look like, but when it actually comes to the small details, you can't quite see what those are. So it could be that you have a big idea for an album, but you don't know what each individual song is going to be. It could be that you have a book, but you can't see what each chapter is going to be. It could be that you have a painting, but you can't see what color it's going to be or what characters are going to be in your painting. So that's the big picture mode. And then the other one is the small seed idea. So you have lots of concepts that you've recorded onto your phone, or doodles that you've written into your scrapbook, or sentences that you have put down into a Word document. And on their own, the concepts seem really cool. And you're like, if I could have this and it's all part of this bigger project, then that would be a cool idea. But the problem is, with both the big idea and the small seed, you don't know how to get going with either of them. And I want to try my best to at least get some of the way of describing how to get through that. So, starting off with the small seed, and I'm going to be using examples that I've gone through in my life to try and help you. So, I spent, or it probably was about 4 to 5 years working on my first album, which was more of an EP. It was 6 songs, but I spent a long time practicing this craft. I remember, I think it was second year in university, I spent my time going, right, I want to make an album. I didn't know what the album was going to be, but I said, I want to make an album. I had a bunch of small seed ideas, cool little riffs, lyrics that I thought were quite cool, but none of them intertwined or interconnected with each other. And what got me through that was simply going, right, I've got this time frame of which to produce an idea. So it could be a month, for example. I'm going to produce ideas all over that month, seeing what ideas I want to do and putting them into a collection. Once that idea gathering phase ends, you go, right, which one of these many ideas do I want to put into my album? Or if it was the case of writing a chapter, it could be what sentences do I want to put in? What's the arc of this book going to be? Sorry, I'm breaking my flow a little bit here. So, you have a bunch of small seed ideas, and you go, right, I want this song, this song, this song, this one, and this song. And then you just begin working on those bit by bit, and you sort of give up the generation phase. There's a distinct difference between the idea creation phase and the structure and putting things together phase. And once you recognize that, and maybe I need to talk about that in another video because I haven't gathered the ideas for that today, but there is a distinct difference between generating ideas and coming up with new ideas and actually shaping the ideas that you've already created. So when it came to writing a song, uh, I was I reached a point when I was like, okay, I've got a cool verse, chorus, verse structure that I like, but I don't know the lyrics for it. And this is when you reach a point when you just tell yourself, I'm going to lower my expectations a little bit. Sometimes you have a cool idea and you stop yourself from making the lyrics, or it could be anything. It could be anything. It could be you have a cool drawing, but you don't want to color it in because you don't want to ruin the image. At some point, you have to take the plunge and go, right, maybe these lyrics that I write are going to be fairly bad this time round, but that will be learning for the next song. So I went ahead and I think I went to a bar, and I spent a good hour or two listening to that song over and over again in my head and just writing down a bunch of lyrics that I thought, that sounds good enough. And along the way of that process, you might find yourself going, that is actually a cool lyric idea, or that's a good melody, but maybe I could do these lyrics instead of these lyrics. Point is that if you have a cool idea and that you enjoy it, you should try and obligate yourself to some extent to creating it the best that you can so that you can release it. Even if it's 10 seconds long, even if the lyrics are the same thing over and over again. If it's a drawing, maybe it's the same looking face in the same direction, and it's just 1,000 of them in a whole collage. However you want to do it, that's the method that you should go for. I'm just going to look at my notes real quick and see if there's anything else I want to mention. And what I did at the end was, on my first album, I called it Shelf. And I called it Shelf because it was me putting those ideas on the shelf. You don't have to call it that. But the point is, when I took all these ideas, so I mentioned what I did with one song, I just repeated that over and over again for all 6 songs. And I felt like none of the songs had a coherent message with each other. It was sort of more about my progression of just making that. And that's why I called it Shelf, because I wanted to put these ideas finally on the shelf so that I can move on to my next project. However it works for you, that's the best method that I could recommend. Commit to lowering your expectations a bit for your first few goes, if it means that you can get it over the line, learn from completing a song, and then moving on to the next set of songs. Chances are your first 6 songs probably won't be the best in the world, but your next 6 will be a little bit better than those ones, and you just got to keep going from there. Right, don't want to make this too long. So we have the big picture. So now, in this current situation, I'm working on a big picture style project. I have an idea for a full concept album that's about online addiction and my experience of it and what I've seen around the world. And it's this really big idea that I thought this would look quite cool, and I can kind of get an idea of what the album cover looks like. But when it comes to the small details, what actual songs are going to be created, I didn't know how I was going to do it. So this is the process that I've been in so far. As of right now, what I ended up doing was taking my concept. This would work really good for books, I think. So let's use an example of a book. If you take a book, break that book up into 10 chapters, let's say, and among each of those chapters you have different arcs that you want to do along the way. So with my album, it was going to be about how, and this is for the music album, so it would be that you go into the system, and then you're trapped in the system, and then you escape the system. Classic story of getting in prison and then escaping. So you have a 3-act structure, and I split that up into 10 songs. So 3 chapters per arc, you could argue, where you have, on the first bits it will be getting trapped into the system, the next 3 will be being trapped in the system, the last 3 would be escaping the system, and then you got one more which could go either as an intro or an outro. I've decided on an intro in this instance, but do whatever you need to do. So split them into chapters and decide what those chapters are going to be. Then the next stage, and it's very similar to the small seeds method, but it would be you spend a month generating a bunch of ideas. But with the big picture, it's a bit different. You start thinking about, when I make this song idea, how can I relate this to the album that I'm creating? Or if it was for a drawing, it would be, when I make this drawing, how could I relate this to the drawing that I'm making? And if you can't, then it doesn't really matter. But you make that drawing. Really, really, the best way I should put it actually is you make the art thing that you want to make first, the drawing or the chapter or whatever it needs to be, and then after you've finished it, you say, can I relate this to the project that I'm working on? And again, dedicate a month, dedicate 3 months, however long you feel is necessary. By the end of a month, I came up with 25 song ideas. And they weren't complete ideas, that some of them were just verses, some of them were fully laid out, but not quite with all the lyrics that I need. Some of them were trying to think. Some of them were literally just recordings that I did on my microphone and then just stuck onto Ableton, which is a music software if you don't know. So take your ideas, organize them however you want, and then you make a judgment. It's suddenly gone a lot more windy. Then you make a judgment. Do you want to keep this into your... Do you want to put this into your idea of an album, or do you want to bin it? And I had 25 songs to work with, so I could bin, 15 of them. I actually ended up going with 13 songs in the end because I actually liked quite a lot of the ideas. But the point is that you go, right, these are the songs that I enjoy the most out of the 25, 50, however many song ideas that you make. I gave them a rating out of 10, depending on the theme, how it fit into the concept, and just how much I like the idea in general. And that's where I'm at for now. So from this point on, what I'm going to be doing is basically the same idea as the small seed idea. I've now got my 13 songs that I want to create. Start with the first one and flesh it out and make it into the full song that it can be, and then keep going that with the rest of the songs. Try and lower your expectations as much as you can. Actually, not as much as you can. What I mean is, try and lower your expectations if you're finding a lot of resistance to making your project. And just see what you end up coming out with. Try and make it the best that you can, not the best that you can fantasize in your head. Just make it the best that you can and see what you end up coming out with. And I think that's all I've got. So basically the overall point of all of this is to say that regardless if you have a big idea or lots of small ideas, you should try and stop worrying about in this case of the small seed ideas, you should stop worrying about the generation phase. You should try and start fully completing your songs and making them as good as they can be. And in the idea of the big picture mode, you actually need to begin generating ideas instead of just fantasizing about the big picture. Actually start doing the work of generating ideas and seeing how good you can get that big picture to come to reality. And I think that's it. This is a very difficult video. I've tried recording this many times and I just couldn't get it going. I really do struggle with a script at the moment, and that's probably because I should have lowered my expectations to some extent. On the next video, I'm going to be working on talking more about perfectionism, because my process of making this video has been a big struggle with perfectionism, and I want to explore that a bit more and see if I can work out why that is ending up the way it is. Anyway, I'm going to go to bed now. So, thank you. Speak soon.